Go. Sarah, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. I know a lot of people are excited to hear you chat,
Oh,
talk about some of these questions that I think are a little different from what people usually ask in interviews. So, or at least I hope so. Um, I hope so. So, anyway, please tell people who you are in case they live under a bridge or a rock or wherever.
yeah. So I'm Sarah, the vocalist and lyricist of epic heavy metal band Smoulder. I
Yeah.
do some other things too. I also work for Banger TV and write for Decibel and Invisible Oranges. And now I'm also doing artwork for liner notes and stuff. So that's been really great. So yeah, lots of things. I have too many hobbies.
It's a good life. It's a rich life. Yeah, you did liner notes for Sarah Girl. That I never can say.
Yeah, I did them for Sooth on Gold, Pagan Altar, Reverend Bazaar. I'm also doing artwork now for bands as well, which is great. I did the liner notes for the Smoulder album that came out last year, which was Violent Creative Vengeance. But now I'm also doing them for other bands, which is very exciting. And the first couple bands actually that I've done them for will be announced pretty soon. So pretty
Oh,
stoked about that. Been doing a lot of illustrating, so
oh
very
my gosh.
excited about that.
I wish I asked you to prepare a riddle to leave with the audience and they can guess who you're doing liner notes for, but a riddle is a bit of a challenge to come off the top of one's head. But oh yeah. Anyway, okay, and you've also done some guest and session stuff for Berg Fried and Keys of Orthanic, right?
Yeah, and I have another one that's coming up for like a pretty legendary band, which I'm really excited about, but I also can't talk about it until it's like public.
Ooh.
But that one I'm really thrilled about. Yeah, it's been cool. A lot of people ask, which is really nice, but obviously I don't have I can't keep up anymore,
Yeah,
and
you're doing a ton.
it feels kind of bad, because like I my I work full time and then the band is like very big and then I also write for a lot of publications and stuff like that. So my inbox is always very full. So if you're somebody who's reached out and hasn't heard back, I'm sorry, it's not you, it's me.
Busy, busy, busy. Yeah, and busy with Smolder. You had
Yeah.
a full length come out in 2023. It's the second. The first full length came out in 2018. What's your favorite
Yeah.
track on the new one?
I hate answering that question.
Darn it, that means people ask that question. I'll never ask that question again.
It's only because it's hard, like I think intentionally, I feel like we don't have like I think everyone in the band would have a hard time answering that. But I think it's because we're really, really careful about what we release. And when it comes to an album, basically we wrote 11 songs and we only actually released 7. So the reason why we do that and we do it intentionally and we do it competitively is because we want every single album song on the album to be amazing. But that being said, if I had to pick, it's probably Dragon Slayer's Doom because I really
Okay.
like Dragons and I just really like that song. I think it's our possibly our best song. So yeah.
Oh my gosh, so many questions. Okay. Well, dragons. Would it be like one of those like mini lizard dragons, or would it be like a giant bird for you?
Like the giant, like historic
Oh, okay.
worm, I suppose. That's actually I do most a lot of my art is like mythical monsters and creatures and stuff like that. And I've just always really been interested in sword and sorcery as like a genre of fiction and then also film, and then that's kind of the entire focus of Smolder. So yeah, I'm definitely that kid in your high school who is drawing really shitty dragons. Getting picked on for it.
Oh my God. Listen, drawing dragons in middle school is a real feat. They have a lot of detail. Like that's a commitment starting to draw a dragon. So compliments on a very cool and distinctive way that you use an A sound. It's sort of like a leopard in your singing, and I really like that. It's super distinctive and very metal.
Thank
Um, and a really great opening riff. Um, in Violent Creative Vengeance in particular. It's a great way to start the album. What a cool riff.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm like trying to make sure that this doesn't take too long because I know that in Finland it's totally a different time of day. So
All good.
let's jump into the questions. When did you first realize that you loved rock and metal music and you wanted to create more of it?
Um, yeah, I mean, when I was 12, my dad had a copy of Pink Floyd's The Wall. And so I probably listened to that album 500 times when I was in like grade 5, grade 6. And I think back then I realized that I just really liked music, but it took a long time to actually get comfortable with the idea of making it. I think just, when you're younger and you see only boys in music, I think for a long time I just kind of thought of it as a thing that guys did. And it took a long time to kind of like come to grips with, hey, like, yeah, I could do this. And so yeah, I think that's why I became a writer instead of becoming a musician first. But the nice thing was that, as I wrote more, and then I joined a punk band and did all these, very shitty punk band for a couple of years, and then it joined or formed Smoulder with our guitarist Vincent. Yeah, it just kind of all came together, slowly but surely, I guess is probably the best way to put it. It took a long time to get over a lot of the fear of just doing something badly and it being okay to do something badly for a long time.
And you don't do it badly anyway. How about that?
Not
So,
anymore.
ta-da! So, well, it's really great to hear you say that because we're a certain like wave of female heavy metal fanatics, creators, illustrators, all of these parts that go into it. And I think a lot of women did lack role models, even though like women have always been a part of rock and metal. They're so hidden from the mainstream. Now we live in this much more digital, post-internet age where you can find those hidden people. But hopefully, this channel will really help some of the girls in the next generation as well.
Yeah.
Um, if your music were a movie soundtrack, what would the movie be about?
Um, it's funny because I looked at that question and I was like, it's just the movie Dragon Slayer. Have you seen
Okay.
it? It's like
I
a film from the 80s. It's a Disney movie, but it's like an epic movie about a town that's being terrorized by a dragon. But it's beautiful. It's really well made. I love it. The main character goes on a quest to kill the dragon, and he's joined by a woman who's disguised as a man who wants to like help her village. And I love it. It's a fantastic film. So yeah, it would probably be something like that, or basically some sort of story about a woman going on like a vengeance quest and like murdering a tyrant. So
Oh my
yeah.
gosh, I think you are the first rock goddess to not answer that question with a completely horrific sci-fi thriller. So thank you, because I always like to watch the movie that the girl talks about on the guest talks about on the show after the episode. And yeah, it's been some really hooked up movies that people have.
Yeah, I mean, that's not really. I mean, yeah, I like some horror, and I really like body horror in particular, but it's never been the kind of thing that I want to recreate or the feeling that I want to recreate. I really prefer like very, very obscure like sword and sorcery kind of stuff, epic fantasy, those types of things. And yeah, it's decidedly not fashionable. I'll just put it that way.
Oh, I don't know. I got like a whole list of stuff that I want to ask you if you've seen later. I'll just like send you a massive DM. But anyway, um yeah, okay. Love this answer. Can't wait to watch that. There were definitely some other ones where I had to be like, am I going to finish watching this movie? And then I even got an apology message from one of the rock goddesses where she was like, I'm sorry that I recommended that movie to you because
What movie was it?
I forget right now. Erica Sanhedrin's recommendation. She was like, that was it was like an East Germany film about like a violent divorce.
I mean, Erica's really cool, so I'm not surprised that she would recommend something really fucked up. But yeah, I mean, if you need a palate cleanser, you could also try the Devil's Sword or The Last Unicorn or Flight of the Dragons or like that's the kind of stuff that I think is a little more up Smolder's alley.
Cool. I'm a softie. I like magic and like sweet stuff. So
Same. I'm definitely not into like yeah, brutal anything that's brutal or like torture porn. I'm like,
I can't even listen to like spooky stories at bedtime. I'll have nightmares. But anyway, if you could collect any three vinyl in records of all time, what would you like to have?
I mean, I already have like every record I've ever wanted. I'm gonna be honest. I have a massive record collection. And like when Sean and I moved to Finland, and got married, because like when we formed the band, like we weren't dating, we were just friends. And then we fell in love making Smoulder and then got married and then moved to Finland. The biggest part of like that experience, we never cared about getting married. That was like never the priority. But we were like, okay, if we're gonna move to Europe, then it doesn't really make sense to like bring two copies of hundreds of albums because we've
Ah,
not
so
merged
this
our
is why you got
records.
married. Okay, to reduce
Yeah.
the record collection. Very
Well,
romantic.
it was more like international relocation and like
No, no.
protecting each other and stuff. But when we did it, we merged our record collections, which and we had like over 300 overlaps. But now, like combined, we probably have like we have a more than 1,000, considerably more than 1,000, and they're like 95% of them are like rare heavy metal albums. So we're really lucky. I mean, like every time that we listen to an album, which is every single day, it's a good experience. So
Mm.
yeah, I would say that like the the ones that I don't have probably like the yeah, maybe the first album by Tales of Medusa I'd like to own. We have Triumphant Serenade, two copies actually, because we couldn't bear to sell either of them. That one's really, really rare. We figured if we got divorced, we didn't want to fight over it.
Oh my God.
But like, yeah,
Relationship is completely based on the record collection. Like,
uh, staying together for the records. It's important.
you know what? That would have been the prenup right there. Like,
It's
cannot
the
divorce.
only thing I mean, keeping us together.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well
Yeah,
you can skip that question, I guess. We'll take the Medusa one. Sounds like you got it covered. If you
yeah.
could play a world tour with any three bands live today, who would you choose? And is there any city in particular you would like to play most of all?
Um, I want to tour with Grendel's sister. They're like a epic heavy metal band that's like also signed to Cruz del Sur. They've only
Mhm.
played like live once or twice ever, but they're my favorite modern band. And then I would also love to see there's this Australian doom metal band called Crone, and they haven't put anything out for 11 or 12 years, but they sound like a female fronted Reverend Bazaar. And like
Ooh.
the woman who sings for them, her and I have become friends because over the years I was just like, where's Crone? What are they coming back? I love them, blah, blah, blah. And like I've spoken with the band multiple times. And she's like a farmer in Australia who has chickens, and she's just really interesting.
What a
But yeah,
life.
I would love to like do a tour like that. Like, I mean, obviously that wouldn't exactly be like a headlining, it'd be like 40 people per city, but who cares? That it would be the show that I would want to watch every night for sure. So
Yeah.
that
Yeah, have it
Grendel
your way.
sister and Crone with Smolder.
You're the queen, have it your way.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll make some more fans now.
Yeah.
Um,
That's the hope.
yes. Okay, so looking back on all these things that you've done, what is a big decision you made that turned out to be a great choice?
Oh, that's a broad question. For the first like 5 years of Smolder, I was the drummer. And Vincent was our guitarist and vocalist. And for a long time, I kept wondering if I should become the vocalist of Smolder. And I was like, no, I don't want to be the vocalist. I want to be the drummer. It's going to be better to be the drummer. And when we moved from Calgary to Toronto, we were kind of like, oh, how are we going to do this? It's really hard to like sing and drum. And we were getting to that point where I was singing more parts than Vincent was.
Hmm.
And I was like, you know what? We need to probably move me off of drums. And it took me a full year to like be okay with that. And like looking back, I'm like, man, we should have just done that all along. But
Okay.
I mean, it's fine now. Like I'm a drummer in a black metal band now, which is great. But I wasn't the right choice for the drummer of Smoulder. I was the right choice for the singer. So probably should have done that earlier.
That really goes well with what you were saying earlier about like uh just like building up, I guess, the confidence to say like I can be a female fronted heavy metal, creator.
Yeah.
Um
Well, I
yeah.
think that I had a lot of like, it took me a long time to get over that like internalized misogyny of like girls are only ever singers.
Mm, mm, mm.
Singing is hard, you know? And I
Yeah.
think that that's kind of like that's the current state that we're at right now. It's like predominantly women who are involved in heavy metal are singers. And we need to get to a place where women are also instrumentalists at the same level as they are front people.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that that's happening more and more and more. And I think that, you know, it is getting better, but like statistically, if you look at like any of the data, like women still account for less than 3% of musicians in all heavy metal bands, like on Metal Archives. Like less than 3% is like a tiny, 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 tiny percentage. Like
Hmm.
I'm looking forward to like 20 years from now and maybe we're at 10% or 25%. Like I think that that's going to be really fantastic. And I'm really hoping that, especially like the incoming younger generation, that there's a lot of like women and like gender diverse people who feel empowered and are, encouraged to like pick up instruments and like be involved in that way. So yeah.
Yeah. Um that will be a beautiful day. And very hard to find are the female heavy metal drummers. Tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thanks for taking up the mantle. We need you. We need you to sing and we need you to play drums. And I mean, I think also like being able to play guitar, bass, drums, kazoo, whatever you want, flute, a couple of flautists out there. Be surprised. Uh, it makes you a better singer too. So always good. You don't even have to be like amazing at like the instrument that you pick up for it to improve your singing. So
For
uh,
sure. Yeah. And of course, like any kind of art that you make makes you better at all the art you make, right?
well
So
said. Well
I
said.
think it's
Yes.
like important. And I mean that's kind of the thing too. It's like I think people need to feel less concerned about whether or not their art is perceived as good and whether or not them making art makes them feel good to make it,
Hmm.
because I think that that's like a lot more important, and also it results in music that sounds a lot more authentic than music that sounds technically perfect but maybe feels soulless, which
Right.
like is music that I generally absolutely despise. Like,
Totally. Completely understand what
not
you're
give a shit
saying.
less about technically perfect music.
Uh,
Give me ugly people music.
I totally understand what you're saying. Like when somebody has so much vocal training that it takes all the character out of their voice. Like the thing that I highlighted about the way you sing, that particular A, almost AGH leopard sound
Yeah.
is distinctively you. If you were in a choir, they'd have you sing it on an ah vowel and you'd lose this distinction and it would be less metal too and less rock and roll. So, yeah, and then the other thing you said about like don't be concerned with like if it's perceived as good or what was the second part? Or if you like it or you perceive it as good. What was
Yeah,
it?
I mean, it's less important to be for other people to perceive it as good as it is for you to feel good while you're making it.
Yeah. I feel like
Yeah.
that is something I contemplate now and then about like the prerequisite to get up on a stage in a spotlight and perform requires actually like an ego death. So if you are a very shy person, it's actually just cowardice holding you back. You should be a loud asshole. Get out there and stop thinking about yourself so much, people.
I
So,
mean, one of the nice things about being on stage is that, at least for me, like when I was younger, I was really extroverted, and now as an adult, I've become pretty intensely introverted. And it's been a lot of that was like, the pandemic and like all these other things and just like growing up because, I'm marching towards 40, like I'm becoming an adult, but particularly performing has really changed my relationship with like being outgoing. And I find that it's the thing I like the most about being on stage is like that's where you can be as obnoxious as you want. Like people are paying to see you there. And not only that, but like the only performers who are interesting to watch are the ones who feel it.
Mm,
Like
yeah.
there's few things more boring than watching a band on stage who are just like, you know, sound technically great, but like aren't giving it their all. And I
Hmm,
think
hmm.
a lot of bands do that where they're like, oh, I just want to sound great. So I'm just gonna look like beautiful, or I'm gonna look tough, and I'm like, let yourself go
Yeah.
and like get into it, because I would 1,000% more want to watch a band who's like losing themselves in a performance than a band who's like, yes, we've played this 600 times. Okay, next.
Hmm, hmm.
And I
Yeah.
think that that's like a very important distinction. And I think more people need to just learn how to let go.
I want to see the singer's very best Tina Turner faces.
Exactly.
Like,
You want like the snarling and the
yeah.
falling over and the howling and like the bizarreness, like instead of
Hmm.
like and that incidentally, this is actually why I stopped using a sword on stage, is because everyone does it.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's like that means you gotta stop. That means you gotta do your own thing. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
just think of how many other things you could have. A hammer,
Exactly.
I don't know, a
Yeah.
dead rat, like a frozen rat on a stick. That would be
Exactly. But that's it, right? It's like
yeah.
we get kind of like channeled into these like preconceived kind of ideas of like what's acceptable on stage. And like to me, it's like you should be your ugliest, weirdest, and wildest on stage, because like that is memorable to somebody
I
way more
mean,
so than
yeah.
anything else.
Music to my ears. I can't wait to see a Smolder show now. I can't wait. So, unfortunately, you're
Men
there.
are starting to impersonate me after I get off stage, and I knew that that's when I started doing something right.
Oh my God, I'm so happy for you.
Really funny.
Congratulations. That
Yeah.
is a threshold.
Yeah,
That is
I
a
was like, all
threshold.
right, bud, we made it.
Oh my God, yeah, the thresholds of being a woman in rock. It starts with like the hater comments when you
Yep,
finally decide to show your Tina Turner face and you're making like
yep.
the bass face and stuff. And then like the next one is like the DMs from another girl's uncle that's like, "Hey, I know where you skate." And you're like, these are the thresholds. And then later, may we all get to the point where like men are doing impressions of us.
But they're doing it in front of me, so that's like, I'm like, all right, that's like less sipping the haterade. You know what I mean? Like, because of course, I'm not getting. Well, I'm sure there's somebody's uncle. But yeah, there's been some fucking creepy weirdos, absolutely. But one
The
one of the
threshold.
nice things about like being married to your guitarist and being very publicly married to your guitarist, because I don't want to see your dick in my DMs ever. So don't send it. It's gross. Never
You
will
can
not be
never
gross,
stop them. They'll never stop. Yeah.
but it does help with reducing the amount of gnarly shit, which
Mhm.
is helpful. Which is not great, obviously, because I shouldn't be publicly perceived as being owned by someone else to have men respect my sexual autonomy, right? But it does help. Also, getting
Yeah.
older helps.
Uh,
The
yes.
older I get, the less desirable I am, and I'm here for it. I love it.
Well, still desirable, just like we actually do produce more testosterone as we get older, which means we have the potential for better metal vocals. Like Yuta Weinhold's voice aged so amazing. Like all hail the crone of metal. Yeah, the testosterone will be scary for men, but I don't know. These are also like the stages of womanhood, and like it doesn't even matter if you're singing heavy metal or you're anything, cooking, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But anyway, so what is your favorite piece of gear or stage wear that you own?
I always wear an inverted cross on stage, like a pretty giant inverted cross. And it's like a piece of metal that Vincent got for me at a job that he had in Calgary like 10, 12 years ago. And I really like it because it's essentially the same cross that Tony Iommi used to wear on stage, but just inverted.
Mhm.
So to me, it feels like, a nod to Black Sabbath, but also a nod to the fact that religion is bullshit. you know? And I kind of like that idea, like we went and saw like last 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, we played Hell Over Hammerberg. And we were playing with our friends in Funeral Fuck. And I love Funeral Fuck. I think they're incredible band, but like the entire theme of the band is like basically like the sexual abuses that the Catholic Church has like perpetuated against like women and children. And like watching them live is like a pretty interesting experience because they all wear priest robes and like crosses and like they're very intense about the performance of it. And I realized, like, when I got up off stage, one of them was like, "Oh, you wear that inverted cross well." And I was like, "Yeah." Because the stage persona that I'm increasingly kind of going towards is like very like exorcist,
Mm.
like very like intense,
Mm.
like I'm always like snarling and like grabbing at my face and like ripping my clothes off and like screaming and stuff like that. And I think it works with like wearing an inverted cross and just like feeling hyper threatening.
Well, I'm super excited to play the vinyl game with you. So, okay, because I put something in there that's gonna work perfectly for that. So, really quick, what is a? I don't want to hold you up for like your whole nighttime snooze, but what is a performance memory you will never forget?
Ooh. We played this castle on the last tour and we sold it out and it was really cool. It was, I mean, it's a small castle. It's in a city called Weimar. And it fits, I don't know if it was 100 or 200 people, but I loved that show so much. Like the idea of playing this like 14th century fortress, like stone fortress on the floor with just an incredibly packed room was so great. And I think the best thing about it was like looking at the audience, because as we tour more, I'm starting to realize that the percentage of people at our shows, like it's actually getting shockingly high that there's a large number of women attending, which I'm
Mhm.
so thrilled about. And at that show, there was probably 40% of the audience was women. And I don't think I've ever seen that many women at any metal show in my entire life.
That's
So
goosebumps.
playing a sold out castle to that many women was like amazing. Like,
That
oh,
is
I was
amazing.
so excited. Like it was just, and yeah, just the city was beautiful. And, the next morning we get to go to like a beautiful little cafe and buy like amazing sandwiches. It was just, yeah, I
Wow,
love in that city.
that is an amazing performance memory. Ah, man, I gotta go buy a castle, and it's gonna like immediately. So, um, I'm sure there are just like some cheap castles out there that I can put some
Oh yeah, there's websites for
pictures
that.
in.
You just got to
Yes.
move to Europe.
I already did my immigration interview, so
Oh, really? Wow. Good for you.
yeah. So see you over there.
It's better here.
I'm gonna miss some things about America. I already know that. But whatever. Anyway, so any new announcements for us?
We have a tour in May that we haven't announced yet. So that'll get all the dates will get announced pretty soon. So that's really exciting. And we have a bunch of festivals and a bunch of shows and so many things. Being in a band, it's busy.
Yeah. Oh, May. There isn't any chance that like Little Legions of Metal is on that, is there?
Mm. No, it'll be in Europe again.
Okay.
Part of the reason why we moved to Europe is because our band's really big in Europe.
Well, yeah, in Finland, right? Largest like metalhead density in the world.
Oh,
Um,
we are not big in Finland. We are huge in Germany, but not in Finland. Finland's like all about black metal and death metal. People are like, "What is this
mm,
shit? You're not in like a Evanescence type band. Then why is a
uh,
woman in a metal
I
band?"
know. Yeah, like as I've been working on this series, like I'm obviously asking a lot of guests who are in the Nuatum scene, and I'm like not really as into like I've had a couple guests that do the like symphonic metal, but that's like not as common in the US for one thing as it is in Europe. And
It is
so,
huge in Europe for sure.
yeah, it's
And
like,
like no shade to the people doing those bands. It's
Yeah.
just I'm not the target audience is the way that I always put it, you know?
Yeah.
It's
It's
like the
like,
same thing with like power metal. Like 9 times out of 10, I'm not the audience for power metal. Like like the very like symphonic power metal, but it doesn't make
yeah.
it bad. It's just I'm like, no, thank you.
Yeah, and I mean, same goes for like growlers. So there's a niche, and I'm collecting it, and I'm super stoked about it because like I see some of these like like metal queens Instagram accounts where everybody on it is in a symphonic metal band or they're a growler, and I'm like, what about like everybody else? So here we are. Anyway, where can we listen to your music and follow what you do?
Smoulder.bandcamp.com is the best place to go. Obviously like normal social media. And you can also, if you're interested in the other things that I do, just Instagram.com/last final before doomsday.
Yes. Okay, time for the game. So I'm gonna hold up two pieces of vinyl, and you're gonna pick one of the two, and you're gonna tell us why you picked it. Gladys Knight or Loretta Lynn.
Oh, that's mm, probably Loretta Lynn. I
Okay,
like I like the unusual warbles that she integrates when she sings.
cool, nice. Somebody next door is singing opera right now. I hope my mic isn't picking it up.
Oh, I hope it is.
Oh my god, amateur opera hour. So,
Oh,
Susie
I think
Quattro or Tina Turner.
Tina Turner. I was actually listening to one of her albums yesterday, and I really think that she should have been like more embraced by heavy metal because she like really fucking rocked out like in this really amazing, interesting way. And she's got such an interesting voice. Yeah. And amazing stage presence. Oh, she's great.
Mhm. I got to see her for my 18th birthday. She was a
Wow, that's cool.
was. It was a surprise too. My mom bought the ticket. She was
Oh,
like,
that's sick.
I
Thanks,
got
mom.
yeah, I got in the car because I loved her so much, and I used to try to have like Tina Turner hair when I was in high school, and nobody knew what I
Nice.
was doing. It was a bad look on me, but my mom. Actually, I'll show you. I have a Tina Turner shrine.
Wow.
Yeah, I love Tina Turner. I built that shrine before she died. So
Yeah.
anyway, everybody's got a shrine. Mine just has a Tina Turner on it. So anyway, what you weren't expecting that? So
I think every good house has a shrine to something. We have like our
yeah,
Cirith
what's on
Ungol
your
wall,
shrine?
that's our Cirith Ungol wall.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah,
like
yeah.
then we've got the Smolder or the music shrine,
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I got it.
I'll ask people, well, like Deb from Lady Beast, her shrine was like visible. And then another guest, Sarah from Girl Friday, like they specifically set up their camera to have their shrines. I should be asking all these girls, who's on your shrine? And actually, that reminded me to ask you who did the album art for your last full length.
Michael Whelan's done all of them
Okay.
except for yeah.
It
He's
looks
like a very famous fantasy painter. So the painting that's on Violent Creed of Vengeance and Times of Seen Evil and Dream Quest Ends, they were all on the like DAW fantasy books that came out in the
mm,
80s and 70s.
oh, it's very beautiful. I love your choice. Okay, Kate Bush or Janis Joplin?
Janice.
You
She
love
was
them. Go ahead.
she's she was such a good singer. I really hate that um because she was like she's such a product of her time obviously, but like the 60s were like not kind to women who looked and sounded, and I'm going to put this in quotes because I don't think this is true, ugly.
Mm,
Like she doesn't look the way that you would expect like a troubadour to look. And
hmm
I think she really got punished for it. And Leonard Cohen. Leonard Cohen actually talked about how he felt bad about singing about her in that song Chelsea Hotel, because she did not get the respect that she deserved at all, and then died prematurely, and was like very treated as like this very like tragic figure. But like she was a rock star. Like I wish that she had just been like, "Fuck all of you, I'm a fucking rock star," instead of being like, "Oh, I feel bad about people thinking that I'm weird." Like
Yeah, I hear what you're
Cut that out,
saying.
Janice. You were a
Yeah,
queen.
I know what you're saying. Yeah, there's like the interview where she's like talking about her high school reunion and how people like mistreated her, and it's like, what?
You have
Where? Like,
nothing to
where
prove.
are they? They're nowhere. They're not doing anything. Like, don't worry about them. But
That's like the main thing that I think people should take away from that. It's like you don't have anything to prove to anyone. Like stop giving people who treat you like shit the time of day and tell them to fuck off. Like the
bye.
end. Like
Yeah,
piss off. You know?
bringing the energy. Love it. Okay,
Santa.
Santa, girl school. Okay, we're doing Santa.
I love that album. That album's fantastic.
Such a
She's
ditty.
such an amazing vocalist, like and very like dynamic performer. Also, just like that outfit, jeez. She pretty much set the template for like every like
She
band
even
metal band.
Yeah, she's got the pointed like hand bracelet on and everything. Yeah,
Yeah,
this one I
great
bought it
band.
in Mexico City and it's sealed. So,
You should
uh
open it and listen to it.
okay, what but you have to be there when I do that. How's that?
Okay.
Joan Baez or Yoko Ono?
Joan Baez. I love the way that she sings. I mean, I feel like Yoko has been like completely misblamed for breaking up the Beatles. People just like love to use a misogynistic excuse to claim that the Beatles broke up, but those dudes hated each other by the end. They all took a shitload of drugs. It makes you hate each other. The end.
Oh my
But I
God.
love Joan Baez. She's got a great voice and like Diamonds and Rust. Like if you make the song that like and this is an unpopular opinion, but like Judas Priest, my favorite song by Judas Priest is the cover of Diamonds and Rust, even though I love
Mm.
Judas Priest. I love tons of albums, but like the fact that like she could essentially write a song about something so traumatic and then that could be picked up by like a queer icon and then made into a heavy metal masterpiece is like pretty good.
Legacy.
Yeah,
Legacy.
she was
Uh
great.
so uh Yoko Ono. First of all, Yoko, thank you for breaking up the Beatles. I fucking hate the Beatles. So thank you so much for your wonderful work. And then I actually thought you might pick Yoko Ono because of what you were saying about ripping your clothes off on stage, and she did that performance piece cut.
She's a really interesting performer and a really like and no shade to Yoko Ono. I just her music for me is unlistenable.
Oh my God, that's so
Not
funny.
for me. I don't get it. Like and
It's
like
yeah, it's
you know
experimental. Yeah.
exactly like very very experimental and like I think in a lot of ways I would say that she's a true artist because like when you talk about like what art looks like and like what the conceptual ideas of art are it's like you should be doing something new and fresh but like most artists aren't doing that they're just like retreading like common themes and I would
Mm-hmm.
not accuse Yoko Ono of doing that she's always been like a very like brave like very transcendent very like in your face kind of artist and I have nothing but respect for her and I wish that all these absolute nerds would stop hating so much on her. It drives me crazy. It's like the same thing that happened to like Sinead O'Connor, you know?
Mm.
Like people just hated her for like basically protesting something completely legitimate, which was like Catholic Church sexual abuse of women and children. And like she was absolutely decimated by the industry. She was labeled a troublemaker. She got like so much hate, so much vitriol. And then the second she died, everyone was like slobbering all over themselves to like talk about what an icon she was. Like,
That is so funny. I actually didn't know that she had that trouble. The only thing I knew was that she was a mega talented, tear jerking, fantastic musician angel. So I guess
yeah, so
that's the legacy.
she got in a lot of trouble in the 90s because I think it was on Saturday Night Live, if I remember correctly, where she ripped up a picture of the Pope.
Oh,
And it
well,
like
that might do
it
it.
like completely like destroyed her career. I mean, it was very similar. Well, maybe not similar, but like I'm sure you saw like what happened to the Dixie Chicks, like when they criticized Bush in the 2000s and they like
That is a,
completely lost their career over it.
oh,
And
fuck.
like a lot of people were like very upset that they dared to make any kind of political statement. And it was just like, Bush sucks.
Yeah. No, it's like at a certain level of celebrity, either self-censor or like demote yourself or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Cher or Stevie Nicks.
Mm. Stevie Nicks.
Okay. Why Stevie?
I mean, it takes balls to take the amount of cocaine that she's taking. But that's all of Fleetwood Mac. Like they were all insane. But I think just from like a very yeah, I mean I like Stevie Nicks music more than I like Cher's music. But I think that she was a really interesting artist and I really appreciated what Fleetwood Mac did. Even though I know they all like hate each other now. But you know, the and not just her, like the guitar work in Fleetwood Mac, absolutely like life changing. I can understand why they were all together and hated each other for decades and still stayed in the band. Like, yeah, I too would keep that guitarist, regardless of how messy our breakup was.
Yeah, and I mean it fueled a lot of very passionate songs. So they had that. A lot of like one for one, tit for tat tracks on those
I can't
albums.
even imagine. Like, it's the same thing with, because like a lot of people talk about like why did ABBA not get back together? I mean, until recently, but we don't need to talk about like holograms and like that reunion album. That was a whole thing. But like, it's an immensely hard, like the amount of passion and like relationship building and like all those things that go into like being in a band, especially with your spouse and then breaking up and then the band staying together. Like that takes a lot of commitment. And the people who are doing it and doing it drama free, like absolutely kudos to
Yeah.
you. Cause like, Vincent and I have talked about that. We're like, what would happen if we broke up? Like
Uh,
that would be
yeah.
bizarre. And we've
Oh.
both been like, how would you finish? How would you keep being in a band together? Like, it'd
Hmm.
be so hard. Like, we've been together for like 12 years. Like, that would be
Oh my
so
God.
hard. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Okay. I don't want to even start thinking about how that would go. So,
I mean, we joke about that shit all the time because it's just like, like it's
and
it's hilarious being in a band with your spouse. It's a very weird
yeah,
experience.
it
It's great.
is. I
It's
mean,
wonderful, but
and
it's very
that
unique.
does happen like um with mixed gendered bands like I would say actually pretty often.
Yeah.
And I think, when you're a creative, you can appreciate another person's creativity. And when you're constantly doing it together, it's like that's just the formula for love.
Oh yeah.
So,
Absolutely. It's like
romance.
I'm completely unsurprised by that. Yeah, like
Or hate.
it's
Or
like
hate
our
in the
entire
case of
lives.
Fleetwood Mac, right? Like, or total disgust and, all that stuff, like Fleetwood Mac and everybody else. So,
I
okay.
mean, love and hate are like pretty good inspirations for music making.
Well, that is all of the questions. Thank you so much for popping in today. Sing a song as you go.
uh, am I supposed to actually sing?
Oh no, I started
Oh,
singing.
I was like, I'm turning red. I'm like, what?
Bye. No,
Well,
bye.
thank you.
Welcome.
And